Hello, everybody. Paul Sestic here, and welcome all my dear, lovely friends. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the two voices within you. We all have these two voices. One is the ego, the lower self, which you have developed over your lifetime. The other is your higher self, also known as your higher God self. This little illustration, this cute little illustration here, this girl looks a little bewildered as to what's going on with these two voices. Well, we're going to help her understand what's happening here. The voice on the left is her higher God self, capitalized H, G, and S. The lower self is always in lowercase because it is the ego, so the lower egoic self. And she's puzzled over what's really going on with these two voices. The ego is made up of all of your memories that you've developed living in a physical body in a physical world. You've inherited the genetic tendencies of your mother and father, your grandmother and father, your great-grandfather and grandmother, and on through generations. Going back further in generations, they are less of an influence. The biggest influence on you, parental-wise, would be your mother and father. You inherit their genetic tendencies, good, bad, or indifferent. And those tendencies, those strong inclinations that they have, you will feel those emotions arise within you, and then you need to correct those. The other thing you have that makes up the egoic self is the culture you live in, the education you've had, any religion, if any, that you've participated in, everything from your all of your beliefs having to do with not just religion, but politics or anything else. Cultural differences, of course. And all of these things collectively, I like to refer to as your baskets of your beliefs, the basket of all of the beliefs you hold about yourself. And if somebody was to say to you, tell me about yourself, you would start off by saying, well, I'm of such and such a culture, and I grew up in this particular country. I was educated in such and such. I've had a religious background of such and such. And I have children and a family and a spouse, and if you do, and you explain yourself by all of these definitions that are external. All of these things you've derived from being in the world. The higher God self is not that. The higher self is that part of you that is made in the image and likeness of Prime Creator. I call Prime Creator God, or First Creator. God, I'm hesitant to use that term because there are many religions that refer to God in their own way, you see. So I prefer to go back to say Prime Creator. You are made in the image of the Creator, the one and only Prime Creator. And you are in His likeness. I refer to Him as Him just to have a way of referencing, but God, Prime Creator, is neither male nor female, but it is everything, is all-encompassing, and is inclusive of it all. But we use the term He just to make the conversation easy. So your higher God self is fully connected to God. And that knowledge and that voice flows in and through you if you will allow it. If you're stuck looking at everything out in the world, but you don't allow that inner voice to speak through you, then you will have less of that influence in your life. Now, I would say this. Everybody, at certain times and under certain conditions, has the God self, or in Christianity it's referred to as the Holy Spirit, telling you what to think and say. We all have that. I'll give you an example so you can see that you too, regardless of whether you have a religious belief or you don't. If you were talking to a friend and that friend is struggling, say they have a marital problem, and you're listening to them explain what's going on, And you have two choices. You can either interact with them from your ego, which might say, oh, yeah, so-and-so, I feel sorry for you. I know what you're going through. Well, if you've got that problem, let me tell you about what's going on with me, because I've had that similar problem, or I had that problem previously, and it was really terrible, and I was struggling. And so you're getting into your drama. All of that's ego, and your friend is mired in their difficulty. Again, ego. It's two egos chatting back and forth about their common difficulties, you see. But when you're listening to that other person, and instead you allow this inner wisdom that just rises up within you, you might say to that person, yeah, I understand. I'm sorry you feel that you're struggling like this. Would it help if you looked at it this way? Or would it help if you looked at it that way? Would it help if you thought, well, my spouse is really doing the best he or she can with what they know. They're struggling too. They're having a bad day. They've just been let go from their job and they're taking it out on me. The higher self will give you another way of looking at it. It'll show you how to see something from a much higher path. And if you're talking to a friend and you're giving that friend advice, you will know what to say. If you're listening to the higher self, your higher self, you'll also know what not to say. You know what I'm talking about here. There'll be times when you think, I can't say anything to this individual because I don't think they can hear it right now. They're too angry. There's no point me saying anything. Maybe another time, but not today. That is your higher self talking to you. That is your higher God self bringing this wisdom forth. Your ego could never, ever do that. Never. The ego and your higher self make up those two separate minds that are part of you. The God higher self and the lower egoic self never agree on anything. We could even say the lower egoic self is the separation from your higher self. So if you listen to the ego, you're going to be stuck in negative territory. You know that I like to use this map of consciousness here. If you're stuck in the ego, you're in the brown area at the bottom of this chart. You could be angry about something, and if you're angry, you're down at 150 out of 1,000. You don't want to be down there. You could be down at 100, which is fear. And you don't want to be down there either. So if you're listening to that voice, you're listening to your friend talk, and wisdom comes to you, words of wisdom. Those words of wisdom will be coming up at the level of 400 and higher. Between 400 and 499 is reasoning. That's the level of reasoning. You can bring reasoning to your friend. You'd have to be up at 400 to 499 to do it. You might even break through reasoning into 500. 500 is love. 540 is unconditional love. And you might be able to provide advice to them, counsel for them, by being up in those areas. And it is so helpful. But absolutely, when the Holy Spirit, your higher self, speaks to you, you will be in the 400 to 499 range where you can reason. And your reasoning ability might say to you, don't tell this individual on the phone these words or what you were thinking of telling them, because they won't get it. They're too angry right now. This is not the time. Just listen and hear them out. We've all done that, you see. That is your higher self talking. The more you do that, the more you are there for people in that way, where you listen. And then you get a download of what to say, what to think and say and do to help them. The more you do that, the more you become convinced that this is the mind of God working through you. You become convinced that your ego could never think of these things, because it doesn't. It comes from something much, much greater than the ego, and that is your higher God self. So the more you do this in helping other people, you are being of service to others. And as you provide that service to others, your level of consciousness rises automatically up into these blue areas. It's wonderful. And if you can stay up there because you are being of help to others on an ongoing basis, some of you might even be in playing some counseling role with people. Maybe you're a life coach. Maybe you're a psychologist. Maybe you're someone that genuinely is there to help others. You will be functioning up at 400 to 499 or higher. If you're higher, when you start moving into 500 plus, you're moving into divine understanding, God understanding. Quite powerful, I would say. That's where we want to be. We want to be up in that area. So getting back to our message here, the two voices within you, you only want to be listening to the voice that is from the higher self. These two voices, here's what the Course says about them. These two voices speak for different interpretations of the same thing simultaneously, or almost simultaneously, for the ego always speaks first. Not only does the ego speak first, it's loud, boisterous, controlling. So you could take this same topic, again, I'll use the example of speaking to a friend on the phone who's struggling with a relationship issue. You will have two voices streaming information to you that you choose from. You choose from that voice of God within you, or you choose the ego. And I've just explained the difference between the two. Your mission is this, then, in life. This is true for all of us. If you want to function from the higher God self, here's the way you do it. Your mission is very simple. You're asked to live so as to demonstrate that you are not an ego. That means you do not listen to that loud, boisterous voice that says to your friend on the phone, I know the troubles you're in. My goodness, you think you got problems. Let me tell you about mine. That's the ego. You do not want that voice. You want this higher, loving voice that speaks through you. And it's not you. It's not your ego doing the talking. It's the higher God self doing the talking. These two voices within, how does it come about? The voice for God, your higher self, Holy Spirit, comes from your own devotion to Him. Yet, you have other devotions now. Your divided devotion has given you the two voices. Now you must choose which one to serve. The decision is very simple. It is made on the basis of which voice is worth more to you. Is it worth more to you to tell your friend on the phone, you've got troubles. That reminds me of a problem I had in my last relationship. Whoa, let me tell you about that one. Or maybe you say to that person, oh, yeah, I know what you mean. I know your spouse and he or she's a terrible person. Really, I understand. I feel sorry for you. I wouldn't want to be in your situation. That's all ego nonsense talking. Here's what happens when you are listening to that higher voice. These are words that describe you when you function with regularity by listening to that higher voice. All of these words and more describe what your life will look like if you choose to listen to the voice coming from your higher God self. These are words that describe you. You are glorious, dignified, magnificent, vast in your scope. You're noble. You're very distinctive. You're sublime. You're transcendent, meaning you've transcended beyond the ego. You're something much, much higher than that. You're immense in what you are. The beauty of what you are inside, that God present, just flows through you. You're charming to people. You're very gentle. You're noble. Oh, I've repeated that one. You're noble. You're very refined in your thinking. You're discerning. You can tell what's true and what isn't true. You can discern what's important and what's not important at all. You're graceful. You're very polite to people. You have good taste. And grandeur is revealed in you. God's grandeur is revealed in you, and the Course talks about that. The grandeur of God, the greatness of God is in you, and all you have to do is allow it to flow through you. That voice will flow through you and out into the world, where it helps to lift other minds up into majesty. Why wouldn't we want that? My goodness. When you have the mind of God flowing through you, it's the most natural thing in the world that you can be doing. The Course says not only is it natural, it's the only, get this, when you're listening to that inner voice flowing through you, it's the only natural thing in the world that you can be doing. Everything else is not natural. The ego's not natural. It's troublesome. It's all these ideas we've embraced because family have told us. We've learned from living in the world to function on the world's terms rather than our own higher terms, you see. So we don't want to do that. Here is the saying that I like. It brings me back into focus of why I am here in this world. I am here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent Him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because He who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me how to heal. That simply means each of us is here to end our spinning on the wheel of reincarnation that seems endlessly life after life after life. You want to get off the wheel? You want to move on to fourth density living, where there's no more war, no more fighting, amazing creativity? That's how we serve others. And when you allow that higher-mindedness to flow through you, the ego's going to be kicking up a storm because you're not using that small voice anymore. And it's going to be yelling, let me talk, let me talk. But the more you just say, no, ego, sorry, buddy, you got to be put aside here. I'm going to be listening to my higher self. And the more you do that, the more the ego fades. And eventually it fades back to the nothingness from which it came. But the true you stands strong. That you is eternal. That you that is the Creator flowing through you is eternal. You are forever. We just happen to be in physical bodies thinking we are these physical bodies bumping into each other. That's a short lifespan, as you know. We are here to raise our level of consciousness, to level up our game in this world by thinking higher and higher and higher. When we get to the point where we are functioning up around 400 and 500, and you do not drop down. This is how I use the chart in my own life, by the way. If I've had an event happen in the day, I want to say, where am I in the map of consciousness? Have I dropped down into that brown area below 200? Am I below 200? Or am I above 200 in whatever took place? And if I'm below 200, I say, wait a minute, I don't want to remain down there. I want to pop right back up into level of accepting other people as they are. I have a willingness to be flexible and to be open-minded. I can reason with people. from wisdom placed within. I don't have to be right about things. And I can keep touching into love and joy. There are relatively few individuals, but some, in this world who function at 700 and above. I'm not even quite sure how they can last here in this physical body. When you get up into those higher frequencies, it's hard to maintain a physical body. It's like you've got one foot on the other side of the veil and one here. I touch on that from time to time, which is why I can talk about it. But those who are up at 700 or 1,000, that's enlightenment. That is enlightenment, my friend. That's when we look at that list of qualities that show who you are. You're glorious, dignified, magnificent. It's not your ego. It's not you. It's not me, Paul, that's glorious and dignified. The name Paul is nothing. My next lifetime around, I'll have a different name again. It's not Paul who's magnificent. It's this presence that is me. I am God expressing as Paul. God is expressing as me. God is expressing as you. We simply have to recognize that is the case and allow it. And as we do that, we get higher and higher into these levels of consciousness. That's where we want to be. We don't want to look like this dear lady. Like, whoa. I'll add this comment here. People who struggle between ego and higher self, most people are not aware of it. Most people are not even aware they have a higher self and a lower self. They combine themselves and they just say, oh, this is all me. You might even hear somebody make the statement, well, I'm not perfect, but I'm a work in progress. The ego has to be let go, has to be given up completely. It can't be healed. It cannot be fixed. The ego might say, someday I will be perfect. That's the ego talking. The ego can never be perfect. It is the separation from God. It is the separation from the oneness that we all share. Remember, the oneness. In Course in Miracles, it's called the one-ment. The one-ment of which we all share. We are all part of this one mind of God. We function at different frequencies of consciousness within that mind, but there only is the one mind, the mind of God. It's omnipresent. It's everywhere throughout all universes. There isn't a second mind. There's just gradations within the one mind. You could be a terrible person down in the brown areas we talked about. You could be a marvelous person up in the blue areas, but you're still thinking with the mind of God, and you decide where you want to be on that scale of consciousness, you see. Yeah. So, think of this dear lady. Look at that wonderful look on her face. I have to chuckle every time I look at it. And there's the little saying from the Course right at the bottom. You must choose to hear one of two voices within you. You can't listen to them both at the same time. You're listening to one and then the other. Throughout the day, we flip-flop between the two. The point is, once you get to know that you do have a higher self, and you do have a lower egoic self, and that you're always choosing one or the other, you want to choose the one that is of most value to you. And if you choose the higher God self, I'm telling you, within 3 months of doing this with regularity, you're not going to recognize, you're going to be so different. Again, I use this statement right of the Course. I am here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent Him who sent me, my Father, who lives through me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because He who sent me will direct me. I'm content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. Do you know when that says there, yeah, I don't have to worry about what to say or do, because He who sent me will direct me. When you're talking to your friend on the phone who's going through the difficulty, and you're listening to that higher voice, that God self, the words will come to you. You will know what to say, and you'll also know whether it's better to say nothing, because they're struggling, that your friend is struggling and they can't hear anyway, better off saying nothing. All of that guidance comes from the Holy Spirit, which is your higher God self also. You're functioning as one. And you'll know what to say. People that are new at this, practicing this, sometimes will ask the question, well, I don't know what to say. What am I going to say when I'm talking to my friend on the phone or I see somebody and they're struggling? And yet here I am trying to be of help. You don't have to pre-think what you're going to say. You have to get your ego out of the way. You don't want your ego handling the conversation. And once you start being of help to people, you might go so far as to say, if you know of anybody who needs a little one-on-one counseling and they just want somebody to chat with, have them call me. I want to see if I can be of help to people. And then when you chat with that person on the phone, allow you, what I would sometimes say, not always, but usually I would say, Holy Spirit or Jesus, be with me in this conversation. You handle the conversation. I'll speak whatever words you give me to speak, but please, you do this. I don't know what to say, but you do. And then I'll proceed making that phone call. When I first started doing this 35, more than that, years ago, once in a while I'd have somebody call and wanted to know if they could talk. On one occasion, I had a friend call me who said, Paul, there's a friend of mine, a woman, who just had a young child. Well, she has a little girl about 3 years old. And she is so hard on herself, the mother. She thinks she's a terrible mother, has no idea what to do. And this little girl seems to be a real problem, her 3-year-old daughter. She has nobody to talk to. Can she talk to you? And I'm thinking, what do I know? We had 3 children. My wife and I had 3 children. And at that time, they would have been around 10, 12 years old, my oldest. So we had whatever experiences we had. But I thought, I'm no expert in this. But then I also realized I am a student of A Course in Miracles. And I'm going to put myself out there without being concerned about what to say. And I will allow that inner teacher to come forth. So I phoned the lady. They gave me her phone number. I phoned the lady who was having the difficulty and said, you're welcome to come over and just chat if you like. She was so anxious to have somebody to talk to. So she came over and we sat down in our study, just the 2 of us. And she started to tell me about her 3-year-old daughter. She said, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I'm a terrible mother. I have no idea how to deal with a 3-year-old who wants to do everything her way. And she must have gone on for 20 minutes talking about everything concerning her 3-year-old daughter. Finally, at a point, this knowledge was welling up within me, and I couldn't hold it back. And I'm questioning in my own mind, should I tell her this? Am I making this up? This is such a crazy piece of information I have to tell her. What am I to do? And the inner voice simply said, tell her, Paul. Just tell her what we're telling you. And if it resonates with her, she'll know. So, what I said to her is, your 3-year-old daughter was your mother in your previous lifetime. She was a controlling mother then, and she's still a controlling mother now, even though she's 3 years old, and you think you're going to control her? Forget it. And the woman looked at me and she said, whoa, does that ever feel right? I feel like I've known her for way beyond this lifetime. And a 3-year-old, she acts at times like she's controlling me. Everything has to be her way or she takes a fit. The voice continued through me and said, give her some room to make decisions, even at 3 years old. What would you like to do in this situation? Remember, she's only 3, but even for 3, do some things that she would like, but also tell her, well, we'll do this, We would like that. You'd like that. Let's do this. But then over the months and years moving onward, you negotiate with her. There are times you'll do things the way she wants them, but in exchange, she has to also do some things the way you'd like them to be done. And you're actually helping to heal your mother's wounds from a prior lifetime. And the two of you are in this lifetime together to do that, to heal what was hurtful between the two of you in the previous lifetime when she was the mother. And you were the little daughter that was being abused verbally all the time and treated so harshly. Now you're the mother. The two of you agreed pre-life, in a pre-life agreement, to flip your roles and come into this lifetime to be of help to one another. You don't want to be like your mother was in that lifetime and start dealing harshly with her. You do want to negotiate with her. So you do need to give her some opportunities to make some decisions about things that the family can do together. And as she grows up, particularly in 7 and 8 years of age, that will start to become even more clear. Remember, she's dealing with memories and emotions from a prior lifetime. You just can't snap your fingers and expect her to be a different person. But you're in this life to heal each other. You can tell her that in later years. It's kind of hard to tell her that at 3 years old. But you know what we're talking about here. And that was the information that was given to that mother that night in my study. Wow. Could I have known that? Not a chance. Did I question myself? Oh yeah. Like, am I faking this? Am I making this up? And the inner voice said, Paul, just do it. She'll let you know through her response whether it's resonating with her and whether it's helpful to her to help her get on a new direction of working with her daughter. And I did that. And I must say the mother was so relieved. I never saw her after that. That was the first and last time I saw her. But that was important for me to learn to trust source, higher consciousness, guidance, intuitive guidance from my higher self. One might also call it psychic. Well, it is. But psychic information simply comes because minds are joined. So if that example helps you, then I certainly wish you the best as you reach out to be there for other people. Another lady comes in mind more recently who is struggling because of some difficulties she had in her life and continues to have. And that knowing again started to rise within me about what she's really going through. Not my ego. I can never sort it out by my ego doesn't know anything. Really. Doesn't. I can't rely on it because it always has a game plan of its own. It's not about being there for others. And in this individual's life, the second person I'm talking about, they will be able to move on a healing path like a fast track by being there for others. When we reach out to others to be there to help in any way we can, there's a verse in the Course that says, you cannot help but give to yourself. That's how you do it. You give to others, and you are blessed at the same time. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.